Hello, everybody. This is Tony Felker, President and CEO of the Frisco Chamber of Commerce, and welcome back to Conversations with the Chamber, where we are trying to meet with different people in the community and bring up topics that we feel are of interest or that our business community should know about as we try to recover and get on the road to recovery after this COVID-19 virus. Joining us is our staff liaison with Conversations with the Chamber, Mr. Christopher Lee, who's also over governmental affairs. And then today we have the honor of being joined by Mr. Ted Beaman with KidZania. So welcome, guys. How are y'all doing?
As well as we can be. Thank you.
Exactly. Well, what we really want to talk about today, and there's so much involved in this topic, we're not going to get to everything, but one of the things that we want to do is to help educate our business community on some of the things that are out there, especially as it relates to alternatives that may be out there under the stimulus bill, other programs that we think businesses should know about, in many cases, hopefully, before they start taking action. I know a lot of businesses are worried about cash flow, and naturally so, but they've got a lot of decisions coming up in regards to staffing and real estate, and these are all topics that we're going to be looking at to how to improve the cash flow perspective, but also be smart given some of the tools that are out there. And Chris, first of all, we've got a stimulus bill that was, I guess, approved by the Senate yesterday on Wednesday. We hope it's going to be approved by the House on Friday. Can you just touch very quickly a little bit about, this is phase 3, what was phase 1, phase 2, and a brief overview on what's included in this bill?
Absolutely. So phase 1 is what we're calling these 3 separate bills that have gone through the federal government. Phase 1 had a lot of money in it that went into testing for the coronavirus, as well as equipment, money for equipment for medical providers, such as respirators and the like. There's a lot of other things in it, but those are 2 high points from that first piece of legislation. The second piece of legislation that came out, I believe this was last week, it went through the process, included paid family leave as well as paid sick leave. There's a lot more information with that. The Department of Labor is pushing out guidelines on that as we speak. We've gotten in the last 2 or 3 days a few more guidelines from them, so I'm sure there'll be a lot more information coming out in regards to that in the days to come. So stay tuned for that. Now, phase 3, there's individual checks that potentially will be coming out of all of this. This is what's been promised coming out of the Senate and on its way into the House. Nancy Pelosi made an announcement this morning in a press conference that they're going to work as quickly as possible to get that out, hopefully voted on by Friday. Now, those checks will still take a few weeks just because it's the largest stimulus package in the history of our country, $2 trillion. It's a lot of money, a lot that goes into it, but there's the potential for those checks to come in the mail in the next 3 weeks to a month or so. There's still some conversation about how long that will take, but those are all details that are coming out. And a lot of other things. I don't want to unpack the whole thing. It'll take me another day and a half, but there's definitely a lot that's included on all of that. But those are the high points coming out of
right. And as you're going through and trying to decipher these different things and how it impacts our business community, you and Karen have been doing an incredible job. The whole team is out there gathering data, but you two have kind of been given the task of how do you put it out there on our resource page on the website, friscochamber.com, as well as on the blog and different places. And you guys are changing that up literally hourly, adding information to it and going from there. So I encourage everybody to look at that and go into more detail, correct?
Yeah. Well, and on that same note, yesterday we started putting out daily blog posts that had a little bit more detail, some bite-sized information at the beginning. And then if you wanted to read further regarding different press releases from the Texas Attorney General's office, the Texas Governor's office, the Texas Workforce Commission, there's the whole litany of different press releases for different government agencies that are putting out information, changing regulations in this time of crisis and emergency that we're going through. There's a lot that's going on, and so we're trying to give that to you as timely as possible, as well as streamlined and as simple as possible, so that you, as businesses and different members of different organizations, can understand that. So we'll watch for our blog posts. Those will be posted on our website, friscochamber.com, as Tony said, as well as our Instagram our LinkedIn and our Facebook. And so please go ahead and check those out if you want to follow along with that as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, and I know there's still some questions out there regarding the order that the city of Frisco is operating on, Denton County, Collin County. It's a little bit confusing, but copies of those are out there as well, where people can read through them first. Hopefully that'll answer most people's questions about what's detailed than not. So today we have Ted Beaman here, who's with KidZania. KidZania, who, if you don't know, just opened up in Frisco, their first U.S. locations all over the world. So welcome, Ted. And I guess, first of all, give us a little bit of update as to how is KidZania reacting to this? You're a little bit different. You do have the Frisco location, but you've also got operations all over the world. So give us a quick update how you guys are doing, is what's open, what's not, and how have you been impacted?
So KidZania is an international franchise based out of Mexico City, and our group actually just controls the United States. So we have our focus on Frisco first and foremost, because as you said, that's the first location. And then up until this time, we were looking at growth and where we wanted to go next and how we were going to get locations 2, 3, 4 open. Obviously, at this point, that's all come to a halt. We're not caring about anything right now other than Frisco and trying to do what we can for our teams and for everyone that was involved in that project. Internationally, you know, things aren't any different than what we're seeing here. Some countries are further along in the outbreak. Others are not quite as far along. I think out of the total number of, I believe it's 31 international KidZania locations, 28 of them, I think, are closed now. I think there's still 3 that are open in some sort of modified operating hours. But for the most part, you know, just gathering in large groups is not a smart idea right now. I think everybody's realized that. And so you're seeing some pretty big changes in behavior.
It's interesting. I mean, we were talking earlier before we got on the call that if you look outside right now, the weather is great. You think everything's good. And it's hard to believe that, if I heard it right, 1/3 of the world's population is basically in some sort of a shelter in place or lockdown mode, which is just unbelievable. But you put a real face to it, that with a company that's involved in all of that, this is real, and it's not a local thing. It's not a U.S. thing. This is worldwide, and obviously something that we've never seen before.
It is. And we tried to stay open as long as we could. We had some very aggressive sanitation procedures in place, and we were doing social distancing within the park. We were limiting the number of people that could come in any given day so that there could be enough space, because we felt like that, you know, up until the point where the shelter-in-place orders came out, people were looking for an outlet, right? Your kids are around the house, you know, they're going to go crazy and they're going to drive you crazy. So you needed to have something that you could do that you felt was safe. And we were trying to be that outlet. But on the 14th of March was the day that we met as a leadership team and decided just can't do it anymore. We never had anyone that contracted or that was confirmed to contract, you know, COVID, either an employee or a guest. So I feel like we were doing the right things for our people, but it just became too risky, and we felt like we were sending the wrong message, and we were potentially putting people at risk. So we closed down the morning of the 15th.
So basically 11 days ago, you guys closed down. So what's the status of how many staff did you have at the Frisco location? What's their status currently?
Yeah, so we got about 323 people, plus or minus, that are on our payroll right now. And I say right now because we have been keeping everyone on our payroll to date. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we just think that that's our number one job as an employer, as a business, is to try and take care of people in the tough times when we can. And then, you know, 2, clearly what we're here to talk about today, we've been following what's going on with the SBA lending, what's going on with phase 3, and are hopeful and have already put ourselves in process of trying to take advantage of some of those programs so that we can keep our employees on the payroll. We'll come through this eventually as a country. This will cease, COVID will lessen, and people will get out and start getting back into their lives. And at that point in time, we want to be able to put the best foot forward. We would want to have our people that we've trained, that know how to operate KidZania, that can get back in very quickly, get up to speed, and take care of the guests that want to come in and visit us.
But as you say, I mean, that's a tough thing. The big unknown right now is how long will we be in this mode? And you're doing the right thing from a staff perspective and everything else and taking care of them, but payroll is a big cost. But you were one of the first ones who approached myself and Chris about the SBA process, how to get involved in that. Talk a little bit more about why that's a factor in deciding how to handle your staff going through the loan. And you can kind of talk about the process you went through, or just that decision of, do you let people go or not, and what's involved, and how does that relate to the SBA loan process?
Yeah, obviously it's very interrelated. There's a lot of tentacles that reach very far and very wide here. From our perspective, what we lost, what most businesses lost when they closed, is you lost liquidity and you lost cash flow. And that's the lifeblood of a small business, right? Liquidity and cash flow is what it's all about. And so the question became, is there a way that we can inject some liquidity into the business to allow us to pay some bills and to take care of our people, and do it in a way that makes sense for the long-term health of the business? So then this SBA Emergency Disaster Aid Program comes up, and it took a little while for it to get approved, but it's government, that happens. But effectively, right, what they're offering is loans of up to $2 million per business. And those loans are at pretty low interest rates. Basically, for a for-profit enterprise, it's at, I think, 3.75%. And it can be paid off over a 30-year time period. And so if you end up getting, whatever your number is, 200,000, 500,000, a million in loan, but you amortize that over a 30-year time period, okay, it provides liquidity today. And if you've got an ongoing enterprise, you've got the ability, the wherewithal to pay that off. It's not going to make sense for everyone, but for, certain companies that, are plan on, we've got a 25-year lease at Stonebriar Mall. So we're planning on being around for a long time. And so the way we could get liquidity into the business by doing that is something that we felt like it was worth evaluating.
And that's a great point, because in addition to being a 30-year payoff, a lot of people say, well, it's a loan, so I still got to pay it off whether I take the money now or not. But 30 years, you can stretch that out over a longer period, and there are no payments, I believe, for the first year as well. So it gives you a chance to get back up on your feet and start going from there, correct?
Yeah, as I understand it, it's interest only for the first year. But the first interest payment, I don't believe, starts until after 90 days after you close the loan. So it does give you some nice runway, no payments for those first 90 days, and then it's interest only until you hit that first anniversary of the loan closing. So it does ease the pain of the initial takedown.
Now, Chris, you've got a lot of this information up on the website as well as on the blog, right? You've got some great graphics and links.
Correct, yes. And so we've been sharing a lot of the different graphics coming from the SBA website, coming from different area chambers, and we're trying to aggregate as much of the best information as possible. And I thank Ted for reaching out to us as early as he did, because he was able to help us work through some of that process as well. And Ted, if you don't mind me asking, in the process of doing your research to try to figure out what you can do to find that liquidity, were there other opportunities or other options that you might have seen, or that might be available to other businesses that you could share with us?
Yeah, there's not much out there right now. I'll tell you, the financial markets are fairly dry. There's a lot of people, because we were working on a lot. We were always looking at what's next. But there's a lot of questions in the financial market right now about what position effectively they should take. Is this going to be a 60-day? Is this going to be a 6-month? Nobody knows. And so you're seeing a lot of that go away. The phase 3 package that you were talking about earlier, that's really exciting for small businesses in particular, I think. And I told Tony before we started the call that I actually was reading through the Senate bill this morning that passed, just to try and figure out, okay, what's in there and how this is going to work. And in addition to the individual payments for people to help them meet their bills, what they've offered, or what they're putting forth at this point in time that we hope becomes law, allows for small businesses to take advantage of what they're calling loans, but are in essence grants for your key expenses. So that would be payroll, certain AP, rent, insurance, I think is included in there. Utilities, I know is included in there. And if you demonstrate that you take that money and you use it specifically for those items, the loan converts to a grant and you never have to pay that back. So that's a really exciting avenue for us, for everyone to look at, in order to try and figure out how you can bring some liquidity into your business and take care of your needs here pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Ted, I'm sorry. I had heard some stuff that it was up to 10%, but you're indicating it's a lot more than that potentially, both of you.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert on this by any stretch, but from what I have read and from what I have heard, a significantly higher percentage can be converted from a loan to a grant. Again, it's determined on what you use the money for. And if you're using it for payroll, for rent, for those kinds of things, that's what's going to be the primary driver of whether or not it can be converted.
Yeah, and there's a lot to still be determined in that phase 3 package, and the hope is that it stays exactly kind of like you've described in some of it. And one of the highlights that I was going to highlight, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth, Ted, was the $375 billion of federally guaranteed loans is included in the Senate version of this bill, and so that is specifically for small businesses. 10 billion of that is for the Small Business Administration grants of up to $10,000. So there's a lot of options for small businesses that are going to come out of this phase 3. We're just hoping that most of this stays in there. There's another $17 billion for SBA, Small Business Administration, to cover up to 6 months of principal and interest payments for businesses with current SBA loans. So again, the SBA loan process and all the other opportunities that are out there, there's some really good potential in some of this that's coming out of phase 3 for a lot of our small businesses right now.
Like I said, we could go on for hours. We're not going to do that to anybody who's watching, but we would urge people that come across this, share this information with people out there, let people know that there are some different options out there. And I think be smart when you're looking at how do you deal with this issue with your business, with your employees, what you do with financing loans that may be out there. I mean, Chris is an expert at getting to be there. Ted, you've been through the process or are working your way through the process here slowly. Who else would you recommend that if you're a small, mid-sized business and finance is not your forte, where would you go for more information? Who do you reach out to, and how do we bring this business community together to do the best? And as was said earlier, to position ourselves so that when we are ready to come back, we can do so as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Well, certainly chambers play a vital function in small business community and local community. So, clearly the Frisco Chamber makes a lot of information available. You've got some very committed people that can help answer questions. Your local bank, your accountant, if you've got an accountant doing your books or doing your taxes, they're going to be paying attention to these kinds of things. If you're involved in a PEO, and if you don't know what a PEO is, well, then look that up at some point in time, because if you're a small business, it may be worth your while. But I spend a lot of time on the phone with my PEO company, which is Insperity, having them help interpret some of these things for me and what we can do. And then I'll throw this shout out there. We spent some time, we're fortunate enough to hook up with Congressman Van Taylor's office, our representative up here in Collin County, and their staff's been phenomenal. They've got different people that, specialize in different areas, and they've helped us through the process. They've helped us understand different things. They're overwhelmed just like most people are, but certainly I think their team does an exceptional job.
It's great stuff. Anything you want to add, Chris?
No, I want to echo that Van Taylor's office, Congressman Van Taylor, his office has done an amazing job. So I've been happy to work with them. I've heard from many different businesses that they've gotten some really good interactions, especially in this time of just a little bit of chaos. But they're definitely bringing some clarity to it when people have questions. So I definitely applaud them for that. So just want to echo that as well. But other than that, we've got a lot of information that's coming out daily. Like I said earlier, please follow our blog, follow our Facebook, follow our LinkedIn, follow our website. It's all out there. If you have questions, email us, info@friscochamber.com. We will do everything we can to try to help. We'll find answers for you. That's really what we're here for and what we will continue to do moving forward.
Very good. So thank you, Ted, very much, and good luck. And we want KidZania to be up and running again just as soon as possible. And as you said, not only get kids and their parents out there to do something and out of the house, but especially get all those employees back and working. Chris, you're going to be staying, working on top of all of this sort of stuff. And just anybody who's watching this, I want to stress again, be sure to let people know that we're going to be putting topics like this out there. We've got an upcoming topic about real estate and what to do with your lease. It's complicated because it's a lot of, if we do this, it affects the next chair up or the next level up and going from that. But we're looking at cash flow strategies that'll be coming up, and just be reaching out there. Nobody is an expert in all of this. We are in uncharted waters, but please reach out. Know that there are people looking into this. Reach out to somebody, ask questions. But before you do any knee-jerk reactions about what to do, try to get as much information as possible. Look at the different alternatives and what's smart for your organization, not just today, but in the next 6 months and the next 6 years, and try to do what's best so that we can position all of the Frisco business community and beyond to recover as soon as possible. And that's really what we're focusing in on. So once again, Ted, thank you very much. Hang in there. Good luck to KidZania. We're standing behind you. Chris, you got work to do. I think I heard another text column in there. So you've got research. And to all the rest of the Frisco business community, we'll be back with more topics soon and look forward to helping you. Let us know what you want to hear about as well. Stay strong, everybody, and be safe.